Very much. And thank you for the very warm introduction. Very pleased to do this meetup for this team. This is the second time I'm doing this particular topic, but I think it's going to be better the second time. I learned a lot in the first time I did this about a week ago, and hopefully I can learn more from this experience, and hopefully everybody here today can learn something from what I'm doing. I like to do this a little bit collaboratively, so there may be some spots that I ask for some input or ask some questions and hopefully get some engagement to make it fun. So this is an opportunity for everybody to learn, and hopefully I can learn from you as well. So I work for Nishtech. Nishtech is a gold partner for about 16 years on Sitecore. I have personally been on Sitecore since 2007, certified in 5.3. I don't think I went a single year working on non-Sitecore projects. And yes, I had the pleasure of working with this fantastic RightPoint team that I will also call family out of Jaipur, and had the pleasure of visiting that office. So I feel like I'm in a second home here, and this is really good to meet with this team again and see some familiar faces and some new faces as well. I'm going to do this a little bit unconventionally as far as how I would present a PowerPoint, because last time I learned fumbling between Terminal and PowerPoint and Visual Studio and Teams was not elegant. So I'm just going to share my entire screen, and we're going to go with it like that. Great. So what are we here to talk about today? 3 topics and how I combine them into generating content. So the Sitecore Marketing MCP server combined with Claude Code, combined with a piece of software called n8n. And I have to say that as slowly as possible because for some reason, try to say it yourself. It's very difficult to say n8n. You have to be very deliberate about it. But how do we combine all 3 of those today to generate content within Sitecore? All right. So we'll go through the MCP server. We'll go through Claude. We'll go through Claude CLI, because I want to show you a different way that I use Claude than you might be using Claude Code or Claude AI. And then again, n8n AI workflow automation. And maybe we'll have some time for questions and some discussion afterwards. So about me, I started my career about 25 years ago, Sitecore certified 2007, as I mentioned. Back when I was doing development, it was all web forms. So if anybody has any questions on ASP.NET repeaters, by all means, I am an expert in repeaters because that's what I was writing code. But I still get the chance to write code today in my current role. I'm the director of technology, and I lead the engineering practice over here at Nishtech. I almost said RightPoint because I did, as mentioned, lead the CMS and DXP practice out of Boston for many years as well. All right, the content powerhouse. So we're going to talk about the 3 tools. So let's get familiar with all 3, and then I'm going to throw Teams here in at the bottom as well. So first, we have Sitecore AI, or XM Cloud. Sitecore AI is the new rebranding of XM Cloud, the SaaS-hosted platform that we're all in love with and we all hopefully are working with today. And we know all of the AI capabilities that are directly in Sitecore AI, but one of the capabilities is the MCP server. And we're going to talk in more detail about what the MCP server is and what it does and how different people can use it. And then we're going to talk about Claude Code. I believe that Anthropic is leading the AI race. Nishtech has invested heavily into AI and AI automation, and Claude Code is one of the products that we use on a daily basis. Our developers are using it to accelerate their workflows, generating code. So how can we use Anthropic's tool to interact with the Sitecore MCP server to read, write content from Sitecore? And then n8n is a workflow automation around AI to pull it all together. And we'll work with all three of these tools. And finally, I have teams at the bottom because I needed a quick way to interact with this. As part of the way that I'm doing this presentation, you get to see my notes, which no big deal, but all right. So to start this, we're going to skip to the last page of the book. And I'm going to do something very quickly here. And just sleight of hand, you don't see anything that's happening just yet. What I want to do is go over to Teams. And before I go over to Teams, I'm going to ask, first person that wants to answer, what is your favorite thing about Sitecore?
I think the way I look at it, Steve, it's essentially the entire ecosystem play, and in which, from a pure content management system to experience delivery, and the way it is all in the very composable way is how I look at it. And of course, with the new aspects of AI coming in, yeah, I mean that's how I could put it up.
So
And by the
I
way,
typed down
Steve,
quickly.
before you start
Yep.
over, I just want to say a big hello to you via Nistec, because Suresh and Niru are great friends of mine. Um,
Oh,
yeah, say hello to Suresh Devanan and Niru. And my kids more or less kind of grew up a little bit with Niru's kids as well. Yeah, so happy to. I know I couldn't, meet while you were at Right Point, but happy to be connected, Steve.
oh, fantastic! And this it is just further. So this is not just a family with the Jaipur office. This is family across the world. This Sitecore thing brings us together.
Yep,
This
you
is
bet.
very nice to meet you. And if this is being recorded, Suresh watches everything. So if you guys are recording this and post this anyplace, he'll see this. Very nice. I will pass that lovely message along to Suresh. So I captured some notes here in Teams, and you might not really understand what I'm doing just yet. If you see what's above, you might guess what's going to happen next. But I just typed in this Teams message because I need a trigger. I just said, Nishtech blogger, hey, write me a blog on why Sitecore AI is great, why we love it, and it's because the entire ecosystem, content management, composable model, and AI system coming in. Just very quick notes. I'm just going to send that off, and we're never going to look at that until the end of the thing. So let's see what happens. Let me make sure that this. My apologies. I didn't follow my own notes. We were just going to quickly just do that one more time. All right, very good. Because I'm nervous, I want to make sure that that is doing its thing. All right, very good. It's off doing its thing. Now we can talk. That's going to take some time in the background. The Sitecore marketing MCP server. I'm not going to talk about how to set up the Sitecore marketing MCP server. There's some pretty clear instructions here on this documentation that feel free to go and read up on your own. It's pretty quick. I think you can set it up on Claude CLI in about 5-10 minutes, as long as you have a Sitecore AI portal to connect to and authenticate against. But what we're not looking for is there's actually two MCP servers. So let's not get confused here. There's a unofficial MCP server that was developed that's in GitHub here by Anton. This is not what we're working with. This will work with Sitecore XP and XM, and you can install it. It works in a very similar way, but you may get tripped up because if you ask Google or Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude, like, give me some instructions on how to set up the Sitecore MCP server. This gentleman has better AEO and GEO presence because his answers come up before Sitecore's answers, probably because his was in the marketplace first. So you might see something like, add this Sitecore API key, and then you may look in Sitecore AI and you're like, I don't know how to get that. It's because it's talking about this server, so it created some confusion for me and some other people. Um, we're not talking about this one. All right, this is not the one that we were talking about today. We're talking about the Sitecore MCP server for Sitecore AI. So, what is an MCP server? An MCP server, like an AI, we know what that does. It exposes individual services to developers so that we can write code around it. We can write a client either in Python or C Sharp, or even call something in Postman. But it's a developer way to interface programmatically with different microservices on your site and interact with your data. An MCP server is a wrapper around an AI that allows the AI, our API, to be discoverable and talk in more natural language with the AI, because AI as a large language model tool and natural language, and even the development languages that we work with, it's not good at calling tools. It's not able to call Postman and make a call on your behalf today. So we need something in between called an MCP server to be able to do that. If you ask Claude, um, call Sitecore's API, and here's the documentation for the API, and get me all of the sites, the first thing Claude's going to do is probably create a Python script to do it, because Python would be the way to do it, and then Claude may use Python. So in this case, an MCP server is a standard way that wraps that API so that our LLMs can more efficiently and effectively talk to our APIs. So what can the Sitecore MCP server do? It can do a lot. And I copy and pasted this from the Sitecore documentation. So by all means, you can just go and read it there. But from top down, it can give you information about your sites. It can give you information even farther about your pages. It can give you information even farther about the content within those pages. It can go even farther and give you information about components within that content, within those pages, within those sites. And you can do other things around anything that you can interact with in the API, as far as assets and personalization rules and your brand kits and briefs. You can now interact with in the MCP server using something like ChatGPT or Claude Code as your LLM. So, what can we do in the MCP server? Here's some examples of things that you can ask Claude. You can say, list all of my available sites in my Sitecore tenant, or give me information about the niche tech blog. Very general language, and it's able to go and interpret that and understand that and go and fetch our content. Show me all the pages within the niche tech blog. So we can see it's getting a little bit more useful. Maybe you might want to use this for content auditing or page auditing or understanding the content that's on your site. On the page level, even farther, search for pages that have a specific term in the title, or generate a landing page on my site, or take the content on my site on this page and take the English version and translate it to French, or maybe something a little bit more programmer centric. Get me the HTML content for the contact us page. Just very general queries that you can ask, and it'll give you back information down to the content level. So we're just drilling down even farther from the site to the content, and you're seeing that it may get a little bit more useful to us as developers or marketers, generating blog posts, updating hero text directly on the homepage, listing out available templates so that you can tell your content authors what templates are available to generate new content, or getting any type of details about a page, right? So that sounds pretty fun. So how do you interact with this? You can hook up the MCP server to any of your favorite AI clients named Claude, which I think everybody's using. You can hook it up to Cursor or Copilot, and then there's a bunch of other things as well. But I think the industry preference right now is strong around Claude. So that's why I joke around using it with Claude, and that why I'm using it with Claude. I was a big fan of Cursor for a long time. And I don't think I've ever come around on Copilot. It's just kind of there. If you have a subscription to Copilot, that's fantastic. But I think that Claude is the strongest tool in the market right now. So let's talk about Claude Code. On the left is a terminal, and we're going to hop over to actually interactive in the terminal here in a second. But we have Claude Code that runs either in the terminal, which is different than Claude.ai on the desktop that's you're interacting with in Chrome. But you're able to interact with all of your files locally within any type of project by using it in the CLI here, as you see on the left. And you're going to see me interact with it in that fashion as well. In a similar fashion, there's a Claude Code plugin that works within Visual Studio that you may also see me working with, where you can see Claude Code sort of take the place of Copilot, but it's more of also a Copilot, I guess. It sits next to your Visual Studio instance and allows you to interact with your code via Claude Code in a similar way. So a couple different ways that we can use Claude. So let's pull up the terminal here. In the terminal, I'm in a project. So whenever you're in a project, you can see that I'm in this project/niche tech content generator. By calling Claude in here, this is the context for Claude. So everything that's in this project folder, is now considered context, and you can reference that context whenever you're talking to Claude. In this case, we're not going to do anything just yet, but we want to talk about the MCP servers. So in Claude, I have this terminal, and I can say MCP /MCP, and I can manage my MCP servers through here. So I can see, I think if I just type MCP, right? So just /MCP is going to give me all of the MCP servers that I have installed, and it's going to tell me some information about them, if they're authenticated or not. In this case, I have a local MCP server here for Sitecore, and it's connected, which means that I authenticated that this morning against Sitecore AI. And that, like I said, takes about 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to just drill into this and see what this is all about. It's telling me that it's connected and authenticated. And like I said, this is just a wrapper around APIs. So when it says tools, 48 tools, that means there's 48 APIs that Claude can now interact with on my Sitecore AI instance to do different various CRUD operations or search operations. The other things here, I mean, re-authenticate, clear authentication, or reconnect or disable, they're pretty self-explanatory. They just do those things. So not much more that we can do here other than view the tools. But 5 at a time, we can see all of the APIs that Claude has the ability to call. Maybe listing my sites or searching sites, getting languages, getting paths, getting pages, creating pages, adding a language to a page. So these are the APIs that are registered as tools that are available for Claude to be able to interact with. I'm going to exit out of there by just hitting escape. We're just going to come back to the Claude terminal here, and let's start interacting with Claude. I'm just going to bring this up in the background because Claude might take a little bit of time, not to be, so let's not make this confusing here. I can say simply, how many Sitecore sites do I have? And it's going to do some thinking, and hopefully in the interest of time, be very quick in calling that API. We can see it's calling list sites in the MCP server. And it's calling back, I have 2 sites, the Niche Tech blog and this NXA site. Very quickly, I will just pop over to Sitecore. I will show you. This thing is in my way. It picked up on these 2 sites here. So we're all familiar with Sitecore. I'm in the desktop view. I'm just going to have a strong assumption that everybody is very familiar with Sitecore here. So we have our blog site and our Niche Tech NXA site. So fantastic. Claude was able to see that. Claude let's go a little bit farther. And I can say how many blogs are in my Niche Tech blog site. Now you notice I didn't even get the syntax right. I just called it the niche tech blog site, not in niche tech hyphen blog site. But that's the value of the LLM, that it's able to interpret what I'm looking for and then understand in a way, and go and fetch. So it already says get all sites, get all pages by site, niche tech dash blog. It's already off and fetching content and interpreting that content and trying to pull back the answer that I'm looking for. At some point, these queries, wow, this one came back quite quickly, so fantastic. My niche tech blog site has 176 pages. I have 163 blog posts ranging from 2011 to 2026 across all of these different categories. So it was able to interpret my query, but also gave me some contextual information back that might be useful to me. The topics that I wrote about, healthcare, UX, Salesforce, Optimizely, this is pretty powerful stuff. Previously, we might have written a PowerShell query as a report, or maybe if you were more adventurous, you would write this query in SQL Server or SQL and say, give me all of the pages with the blog template, and it would come back with my content, and it would take some time. It would take a developer maybe a couple of hours to write that query. Here, I didn't write any query. I just queried the MCP server and I was able to pull that back. So you can see that this can become very powerful very quickly to both developers and maybe content marketers that are doing a content audit or trying to understand pages on the site. To the developer, it might be important to do a migration. I might be trying to do an audit or find content or report on content to do a migration. This starts to get pretty cool here, right? I have these screenshots in here because at some point Claude starts taking a very long time. So in the interest of time, like this query, I said, look at my Sitecore site and how many blogs do I have? I took about 46 seconds. It came back with a different answer this time, right? So Claude is not deterministic. It's probabilistic. So you have to consider that when you're using the MCP server, that it's not always potentially 100% correct. So the way to think of it is like this. When you ask a script in a language that we like PowerShell or any language, what's 1 plus 1? It's deterministic. It's 1 plus 1 is calculated to 2. But if you ask Claude, what is 1 plus 1? The answer is, it's probably 2. And I have a high confidence that it's 2. It doesn't actually add algorithmically what those two things are. So you get a deterministic or a probabilistic answer where it's probably this, which means that you're not always going to get the same answer every single time you ask it, unless you format it in a very specific way that you want and say, I always want my output to be this. But even so, the output can be variable. So we see here that it gave me a similar answer, but it structured it a little bit differently. So it's giving me a different answer every single time. Other queries that I asked here. I asked, give me an analysis of all of well, I can try to do it. Like, tell me more about the topics that I wrote about. And it will go off, and it's probably going to take a lot longer. I think in this case, it was 1 minute and 28 seconds. So I don't want to sit around for 1 minute and 28 seconds and wait for this to come back. In this case, this was the answer that it gave me previously. It broke down all of my categories. I didn't ask it to format it like this. It just answered like this. And I took this screenshot and it told me all of the categories, and it broke down a little bit more. How many were about Sitecore? About 30% were about Sitecore. Other topics were about Optimizely, Boo, and commerce and healthcare, Salesforce. So pretty cool stuff. What else did I ask it? I asked it how many blogs were written by me. And I didn't have the best year of blogging last year, but I did write 7 blogs. And it told me. It told me the date that I wrote the blog and the title of the blog. So in PowerShell or SQL, that would be pretty limiting. And every time I try to throw something very dynamic at it, like how many blogs were written by me? How many blogs were written by me in the year 2022? You would have to adjust that query every single time. in this case, I can just ask it whatever, and it's going to give me my answer back. So really cool stuff when you combine Claude, Claude Code with the MCP server. To a developer, we might be retrieving content via natural language from Sitecore to update content. We might use it to do migration or bulk updating of content programmatically. That's where the power can really come in. Marketers, similar, right? They might use it to audit content as well, or to create content, or do content audits, or find content, or to update existing content, images, copy, or whatnot. So how would AI, you're not going to get my fun on animations because I'm not sharing it in presentation mode, but how would AI use it? We talked about how a developer would use it or a marketer would use it, but how would AI use it? From the movie Airplane, this is the autopilot. So we want to use it agentically, using Agentic Studio, right? So we want to use it with my friend Claude here, not within Sitecore's Agentic Studio. Sitecore has already a workflow model that you can work within Sitecore. It's built on ChatGPT 4.0. It has 20 or so agents out of the box. It's a fantastic tool. However, I want to work with my content in Claude. And right now, Agentic Studio does not allow me to do that. And not only do I want to work with my content in Claude, as you just saw, but I want to do it agentically. So another thing, and this is something that I kind of do on my own. I'm not sure if this is a general practice or a good practice or bad practice, but when using the things agentically, I needed a Claude API token, and the token starts to cost a lot of money. In fact, it can cost several dollars every time I make a call using a token, which could get quite expensive quite quickly. But I have a Claude subscription, and it's a monthly subscription, and I want to use that. So you're seeing me not use tokens here. I'm just using my regular monthly subscription. I don't have to pay. Every time I write a query, I don't want to have to pay. So I figured out a way to use Claude CLI. I asked Dali what would terminal bash look like if it was an animal, and this is the image that it came up with. So I thought that was fun, and I put this in here. This penguin that looks like a hacker. This penguin looks like he's up to no good. So I want to be able to run Claude from a terminal so that I can now script around it, so that I can now script around my MCP server. So now I write scripts for my MCP server for Claude. And I want to do it within Bash, and I want to use it my Claude subscription. So Claude prompt mode is pretty fantastic. We talk about Claude prompt mode. I'm going to cut out of Claude and come back to my browser or terminal. Claude prompt mode allows me to say Claude P, and I can interact with my Claude CLI the same way that I would interact with Claude code that you saw in the terminal. So I can say in one sentence, everybody can type when they're not doing a demo, by the way. So why is Sitecore AI the best EXP, right? It is the best. Is anybody going to argue with that? And this is going to do some thinking, but it's calling Claude in the same way. And the power of this is it's going to pipe it back to the terminal. This came from the Claude LLM and went off, used Opus 4.6, which is my default model. And now it's pushed that content back to the terminal. That's fantastic. And that is using my Claude subscription and not a token, because I didn't pass it any type of API token. You can take that even farther. And now that I'm in the terminal, I can do anything. Once I'm in Bash, I can now not only pipe in that prompt, but I can pipe it out. And maybe I say, I want to pipe that answer to a file. We'll give that a couple seconds, and it should just return. Great. And now I should be able to see that we have a file here called best.txt, and there's my answer. That's awesome, right? Now I can write scripts that call Claude prompts that write to files. And I can do that maybe using a cron job. And I can do it on a schedule. So I can think of ways that I can, on a schedule, take some input, use Claude, and then use Claude to generate some output. Now we start seeing some use cases on how this can be pretty powerful. So where's this all going? Oh, you're not going to see my animation. That's a bummer. You saw me put in a blog topic. And my expectation is that I wanted to take my blog topic there about why we love Sitecore AI because of the ecosystem and it's composable and all the things that I typed in my box. And we just want that to go live. But I had an extra step in here, but I take my blog topic and I put it into Teams, and then I want it to be live. So let's see what happened. I will go to my site. I'm going to open my site. Very quickly, see. 26. Oh, it's April. Something happened in between. So we're gonna have to debug to see what happened because I think we had an error along the way. So we're gonna figure out what happened and see what my error was. I would have expected if everything was working that this would publish a blog. I'm going to show you the blog that I did last week on the 30th. When I did this exercise, it did publish my topic in here. So let's just pretend that something didn't fail. But we'll debug this. And the topic was why do we love Sitecore upgrades? And it was able to publish this fantastic blog here. It added a title, it added an introduction, it added the content of the blog. It wrote my AI wrote all this. And you can go in and edit this and use this as draft, and then you can go and publish this. It added in my SEO title and my SEO description. But it didn't do ours today, and I'm guessing there's a very simple answer for that, and we'll go look why. All right, so a lot of things were happening that we will go and debug, and maybe I'll learn something and we'll learn something. I posted my topic in Teams. I wanted to do some Claude research on that topic. I wanted Claude to write a draft on my blog. I wanted Claude to critique that blog. I wanted Claude to write SEO tags about the blog. I could also have Claude generate a blog image. And then I wanted it to publish to Sitecore. So how does all of that happen? n8n. n8n is a way to automate that workflow. Because in this case, I want to do Claude research as a prompt and draft and critique and SEO, publish this to Sitecore. So let's look in Visual Studio very quickly. This is my project within Visual Studio about how I've built all of these prompts as markdown files. And then I want these prompts to be able to be called automatically. So at the start, I have this content pipeline folder. I have 3 folders within here called researcher, critics, publisher. And I have a Claude MD file here. My Claude MD files are my instructions that I send to Claude. So when I open this up, this is telling Claude what I want to do every time I call my Claude prompts. I have my project structure. As I just said, I have an agent that does research and drafting my initial blog. I have critics that look at the blog and they critique it and make sure that it's up to my brand tone. And then I have, once it's ready, another agent that writes the SEO and optimizes the SEO. And then maybe create some assets using maybe something like DALL-E. And I tell it other specific output that I want it to be valid Markdown or JSON. I want the critic to include scores on a scale of 1 to 10, to be very specific in the feedback, and to write files in a very specific way into the output job directory so that this agent can write content. Remember how I showed you can pipe content to the Markdown file, to my my best DXP. So when we wrote that prompt, it created this file. So when we do these prompts, I want them to write their files and then pick up input files from the previous agent and then write files to the next agent so that this agent can talk to this agent, can talk to this agent. So let's look at the agents. Every agent has its own Claude MD file. This is my prompt around researching my topic. And I maybe have some brand guidelines or style guidelines in here that I always want my context to talk in a certain way and use specific terms. So I can always shift this. And this is in Git, which is fantastic because I can make updates to this and it's all stored in source control. Avoid jargon. Don't use buzzwords, right? I want it to sound like me. I don't want it to use business buzzwords. I want it to be a casual blog writer, but I want the audience to be professional, business professional, and technical. And I also don't want it to be too long, right? 5 to 7 minutes of reading time so that it knows. So this is how I can instruct my agent by using my Claude files and cascading all of these files together. So this is all prompt engineering, right? So this is my researcher, and this is my critics, and this is my publisher, right? So I can call these from terminal. I can say, hey, Claude, use agent 1 and then agent 2 and then agent 3, or I can orchestrate it using n8n. n8n is a low-code, open source, source available workflow automation tool. I'm running it locally. You can run it on any SSH host, and it allows for connecting any apps or databases or AI models together to automate tasks. So in this case, I'm going to show the demo of n8n. And we may see something happened right from the beginning. That's fun. All right. So this is my workflow automation. And we see all of these nodes on this map. If I can drag this. And it looks pretty complicated, but it's actually not. I'm going to walk through what we're doing. So in the beginning, I have a Teams trigger, and that's just listening to a Teams channel. So you saw me in that Teams, this AI automations channel, try to talk to it. I'm going to try to execute this and fire it off one more time. I think it just had a little bit of a goof because I talked twice in here. We're going to see, let's see if we put this side by side. We're off to the races. It's now executing this workflow. So it's reading my channel messages. So this next step in my automation tool is saying, read that channel, AI automations, and get all of the channel messages, right? I don't know why this is not working. This has never failed on this step. So this is,
maybe there is some issue on the Teams.
What's that?
Maybe there is some issue with the Teams.
It could be. I mean, there's so many things in here that something like I was afraid that Claude would break, Sitecore AI could break. There's so many different tools that are up and down at any given time, and Teams could be not working. But it should be. Oh, it did. Okay, so it. Fantastic.
Oh, great.
It read my messages, and in here I have just a little thing looking for that trigger of niche tech bloggers. So it's saying like, hey, if you see that the text includes niche tech blogger, that means you're talking to me. You're talking to n8n, and I want to write a new blog. So all these scripts in here are for parsing teams. So if I flip back over to this, as this goes, it's going to be green, 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 green. Let's see if we can catch up to it. It's looking for routing the message. It's saying somebody typed in Teams that I want to write a new blog. So that means I want to write a new blog. We're going to notify that we're starting. So this was my notification back. This is a little bit fun that we're seeing this in real time now. So this is saying, great, I heard you. We're going to start writing a blog about what you said, and we'll notify you when it's ready to review. That's coming from this node here. So it's saying, great, right? We see our message being passed in here will notify when it's ready for review. The next thing is just a little bit of JSON parsing to put this in a format. We can see here in table form to help with debugging. So this is kind of neat that we can see as this is executing, I'm seeing this populate my debugging stuff live because I'm in more of a debugging mode. But it's passing this JSON on. Here's my topic of why we love Sitecore. And my audience, I already had in my Claude MD files, and I already hard-coded. I hard-coded a lot of this because this is a POC that the author is always going to be me. This is just other information around that Claude needs to know where to find the blogs and things like that, like generate the files here. So as it goes, it triggered my first agent. And it's already onto my second agent. You can see it's running here. These agents take about 3 to 4 to 5 minutes to run, but this agent is calling that first MD file. I'm piping that into this script here saying, use the first agent and execute based on this topic. I'm going to pass it the topic, and that runs off, and it goes through my critic. My critic, as I said, I was just getting fancy here. You don't have to go through all of this detail, but I was seeing what can we do now that we're creating all of these agentic nodes. I can say if it doesn't pass a certain score. So I think this is the next step here. It's executing the previous step. If my critics say, hey, the first blog was written and it just doesn't pass. I don't like the way it sounds. I have different voices in here. I'll show you in here. I have like different personas. So I have my brand persona, and I have my technical persona. This is me and probably everybody else on this call saying like, hey, like, is this actually true? And is this outdated? And is this logical? And we know that LLMs make things up. So this agent is trying to be me, and it reads the blog and it says, are these claims viable? Are these sources credible? Are the statistics correct? And are they current? And it scores it on all of this because we don't want to write a blog that has my name on it, that has unsupported material or false information. So I put this little step in here just to add that gate. Jump back over. You might need to consider after it fails like 3 or 4 times, like just let it go. Otherwise, there would be a infinite loop situation here where my critic just constantly does not like the blog and it would always tell it to rewrite it. So just be careful about that. In this case, I think after like 3 revisions, I say, all right, enough is enough. Just let the blog through. So our blog was written, and now we're already onto the SEO stage. So the SEO agent is doing its thing. So if we click in here, we can see the table of the previous guy passed. He said it was a 7 out of 10. All right, so it's not going to be the best blog, but maybe that guy is very harsh as a critic. But we have all of the things that we need for our blog. In here, someplace is my blog content, or it could also just be in a blog MD file, because as we saw, we were piping the MD files to the next, to the next, to the next. Let's see if I can see. It is writing the files. The beauty of having all of this in this project is as these files are showing up, I can kind of see my blogs coming together here as I run these jobs. I should ignore these, but just for the sake of seeing things that were changing, it was nice to see things show up. And you can see I've run this a lot of times because there's 184 different files being passed back and forth. So I know I'm jumping around a lot. I hope that this is easy enough to follow. But as we wait for this to finish, it's writing my SEO. Let's see if we can get ahead of it and if it'll catch up. It's going to parse that SEO, and then it's just going to do some massaging of that data to make sure that it's in a format that we can send off to teams. So it's going to tell us at some point, the blog is complete. We're going to publish that blog with the topic that you talked about. with the blog content, and here's the blog content, and here's some meta description, and here's the files if you want to go look for it. So this is notification back that we had some sort of success, and then also letting me know in Teams, and then also I know that it's going to go off to the next step. I'm going to hope, should be only a few more seconds here, that our SEO agent completes. Maybe it's a good place to stop and ask, do they have any questions? Or, oh, here we go. We're off to the races. We can do questions at the end. So that's going to go quite quickly because there's no Claude AI involved here. It's all just JSON parsing, which is going to go very fast. So it wrote back in Teams. Let's go check in Teams. Look at that. Here is the blog that we wrote. The message starts up here. Let me scroll. So blog complete. We wrote a blog on why Sitecore AI is great, why we love it. It's because of the ecosystem, content management, composable, new AI system coming in. Why we're all in on Sitecore. And here's our blog. Starts with the ecosystem. Talks about XM Cloud. So I might want to put in here, I mean, I guess we can still, Sitecore AI brings together XM Cloud. I suppose that's not the most invalid statement, but maybe we put in my blog critic, don't use the term XM Cloud. Always make sure to use this term Sitecore AI. That might be a way that I can enhance that. But kind of neat, pulling all of our Sitecore services together here. Content management, we're going to talk about that. Again, we're talking about XM Cloud. So the LLMs don't really know about Sitecore AI. It's a little new, so it's going to call it XM Cloud. So it might be something I adjust here. The composable advantage. That was one of the things that we talked about. AI in Sitecore. I was going to talk about Sitecore Stream. Oh, and we talk about it, Sitecore Agentic Studio. So here's a very well-written draft of a blog. And a lot of people would just go and publish this. I would go in here and read this and make sure that it's up to my quality of a blog, but it did a pretty good job, right? It wrote my blog and it posted it back here, and it even gave me some tags. This is the annoying work that I don't want to do. I don't want to write out all these tags and SEO. That's the thing I want to give to the AI. And look at this. It published it to Sitecore. It gave me my blog ID as my GUID. And it told me the job just for some debugging information. So let's see what that was about. Let's just finish out over here. We are creating the blog via Claude Code, which means that we're using our Sitecore MCP server. In our Sitecore MCP server, there's some information that I wanted to tell Claude. Here's the most important things. Here's the prompt. You are a Sitecore content publishing agent, and I want you to create my new blog using the MCP tools that you have. And here's the most important information for you. Here's the blog bucket, parent ID, the GUID for it. And here's the blog entry template ID. So that it knows, use that template and put it in this bucket. Otherwise, we have no idea where it's going to put it. Claude can put it, it could put it anywhere, right? But we're going to tell it exactly where and how. And here's the files on how to find the blog from my previous agents. And here's some instructions on how to go and publish that blog. But basically, this is it right here. This is what you need. Call Claude in prompt mode. Using the prompt above, this is my prompt. And these are the allowed tools that you're allowed to use. This is also very important. Maybe you want Claude to just do anything that it wants against your Sitecore AI instance, like delete all of your content. Hopefully it wouldn't. But just in case, we don't want Claude to delete all of our content. So we want Claude to only do the things that we tell it it can do. It can read, create pages, it can get pages, it can list available insert options. Because we're in a blog bucket, we want it to know the insert options so that it's using the same insert option and potential branch template that we have. And I want it to call, this is the exact prompt that does all of the magic. That's what created our blog. All right, now we should see our blog over there. Let's go look. There it is, April 7th folder. And here is our blog that we wrote. So a couple things are missing, but I just need to do a little bit of tweaking to my prompt to put in the authors so it tags me. So not the best working model, but it's a pretty good POC, right? Here's my title. I don't need to do anything to the title. Oh, Sitecore AI features announced at symposium. That's a pretty good title. Let's stick with that. Sitecore AI is groundbreaking AI features. Looks good to me. Here's that blog that we wrote. There's a different blog that's going on here. I have to look at that. A little bit of different. It might have has some cross wires here, but it did publish this this other content. I think there was two running at the same time for some reason. So, but just bear with me. We kind of saw that working out. And then Sitecore AI features. I don't know why it did that. Also told me it published the wrong thing. I think it picked up. I was doing some tweaking here, and I think it picked up the wrong MD file to publish on the last step. But that could be easily fixed. So publishes my content out. That's a little embarrassing. I wish that worked. But here we go. That's the end-to-end workflow, right? Let's see here. It's finished out. Sure, I can do some debugging to see what happened. But I mean, it published something. That's a huge success. And it published from an MD file that existed. It just picked up the wrong file for some reason. And that's it, right? So let me go back to my presentation. And I think I have 7 minutes for conversation. Let's see here. So how do we kick that up a notch? I have another thing that I'm doing for Niche Tech that, because now I'm doing things agentically, I am using n8n to once a month create a content schedule and generate an Excel file. And then once a day, look at that Excel file and publish the content of today to write the blog. So what does that look like? So once a day, I have a different n8n process that just runs in the background all the time that generates this Excel. So that means that I don't have to go into Teams and say, hey, Niche Tech blogger, write me a blog about Sitecore XM in 2026 and what's new and what's next. The next agent is just always running. And then when the day starts, it says, hey, is today January 1st or January 13th rather? And if it is, then here's my topic. And here's the focus areas and some other information, some keywords and the target audience in a way that I can have two models working in parallel. One is constantly generating this Excel file in the background, updating it. Maybe I have Gemini doing some research saying what is important in the month of April 2026 for blog topics, and then always generates this file. And then I have another job that's always looking at this file and writing the blog of the day. And nobody has to look at it. Nobody has to do anything, right? It's just running in the background on autopilot. All right, that's my topic. And so hopefully we learned something. Hopefully I can learn something, and maybe we can have some conversation.
Sure. Thank you, Steve. So we have some questions. So first one is like, what about the security of Sitecore AI MCP servers?
Yeah. Oh, we have a lot of questions. So the security of the Sitecore MCP server is based on OAuth that I authenticated with. So I can show you in here. That is a service that's running on Sitecore AI. It's as secure as the APIs themselves, and that security is handled by Sitecore. So if I go into Claude, I'm going to make things annoying for myself by I'm going to make things annoying for myself by re-authenticating this. So if I do this, it's re-authenticating in the browser, and then now I have to go into here and so this is a little bit of a flaw with my workflow, and you're all familiar with just OAuth in the browser. If I click this, I have to go through two-factor authentication, all that nonsense, and it's going to take me forever. So just imagine that this is going to authenticate at the end of this. But, and don't take my auth code. That's how that works. A little bit of a flaw with this, it only allows for that OAuth authentication. So I actually have to come in here in order for this to work. I have to go in here and do this whenever this expires. And this expires quite often. Like I had to do it this morning. So unless they have a different mechanism to authenticate this MCP server, it kind of takes the wind out of my sails on the whole agentic model, because this MCP server is constantly, when I check my n8n workflows, it always tells me on this step over here, like, hey, Sitecore needs to be authenticated. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I go and authenticate it. And it's good for the day for the most part, but it expires pretty quickly. So hopefully that improves. And there's a different way to authenticate with the MCP server. Did that answer that question?
Yes.
Gosh. Oh, but the QA guy is trying to break things, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Can we use it with Sitecore XP as well? Yeah, so as I said, there's a different server that you can, let me see here, I can pull it up. You are free to use, it's not the one we're talking about today, but it works in a very similar way because it is just a wrapper around Sitecore AI or Sitecore APIs. This is the one for XPXM. So if you want to use it for XPXM, go download it and install it from this GitHub. It may work a little bit differently than what we talked about today, but it should work once you're interacting with it in Claude. And if you have it registered with Claude, everything should be exactly the same from then on out.
So is it not paid?
Paid?
Yeah, is it freeware or like we need to pay for this?
I have not used this because I'm not doing a lot in XPXM right now. A lot of our work is in Sitecore AI, but this is, I think this is free to download. I think this is, he put this in his GitHub here. I'm not aware that it's paid. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think he just allows you to install this from his thing here.
Okay.
Does anybody else know about this? Is anybody using this?
No, but actually we had a session with Anthony on the same, and that time he showcased his capability.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, we're all experts. I'm talking to a room of experts then.
Yeah, definitely that time, like he mentioned that we can do that, but here, like I doubt whether it is, freeware or it, because his company is more towards promoting this. So I doubt that there may be some pain involved in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one that we're using today, if you have Sitecore AI, it is free for you to use. And I think a lot more people there's a lot more sites going to be on Sitecore AI as Sitecore XP turns over. So the one we worked with today is free. The only thing I have to pay for is I have a Claude license, a subscription. But if you hook it up to, I think you can hook it up to like GitHub or Copilot. There's a couple free tools that have a little bit of AI. You can, and n8n is free if you self-host it. And so everything I'm using today is for the most part free, except for the LLMs. You might have your own subscription.
Okay. That's great.
Was there other questions? Let me see here. Who creates agents and who uses the agents to create content? So in this case, I created the agent prompts. I know a lot of people are probably jumping off to go to calls and it's getting later in your day, but I created all the agent prompts. You can do it. If you do it at 8N, it's a little bit of a more developer-centric tool. So in this case, but I'm sure you could expose this in a way that marketers could write these. So it's just in Markdown. They're pretty easy to work with, but in my use case here, more developer-centric. But who uses it? That's made for marketers, right? Like we can hook it up for Claude to a marketing person or a web author, and I say like, hey, like use this on your own. You're using a lot of people are using Claude on their own anyways, so they can interact with it in the same exact way. And I think you can hook it up to Claude.ai, the desktop version, the MCP server, so marketers could use this as well. Any more other questions there? Do we need to learn how to use the Claude at n8n works? I mean, study. Yeah, I mean, it's up to you. Like, you don't have to really learn how these things work in depth. n8n was where I spent most of my learning. That was the most complicated part. But I'll tell you a little cheat. To build a lot of my workflow, my n8n workflow is all in JSON. It's in my project. So it's about 1,000 line JSON. So if I pop back over to n8n, I can import or export that JSON to this file, which means that I can have Claude in here make updates. So if I want to add a new node, I can say look into the bug that I published the wrong MD file to my Sitecore blog. So it's an easy way for me to build n8n workflows because they're all in JSON at the end of the day. And this is in Git, so I can save this and store it as part of my project by writing to this workflow file and importing it and exporting it into here.
So
I think
Steve,
that's
like,
it.
yep. So is it necessary to use n8n workflow only, or can we use like a Sitecore Connect recipe for this or something else?
Sitecore Connect, I'm not as familiar with, but Agentic Studio is their competitor. So Agentic Studio, as it stands today, it looks very similar. And if you're following the Sitecore Agentic Studio stuff within Sitecore, I believe I saw something by Mo. So in here, so this is Sitecore AI in the Agentic Studio. Everybody's trying to copy n8n. n8n was one of the first. There was 2 or 3 of these tools that existed, and everybody's looking at that model and saying like, hey, that's what we need to do. The thing that's different about Agentic Studio and n8n is this is a lot easier for content marketers to come in here. So same kind of thing that I'm doing, like I have a content generator and a blog writer and a researcher. These MD files are all more marketer friendly, but you're locked into Sitecore's LLM model, which I believe is ChatGPT 4.0 or 4.1, which is not the latest and greatest. So it's free because they're using a quite dated model. I want to use Opus 4.6, which is amazing. Anybody that's using Claude in Opus 4.6 knows the power of that model. So I want to use any model. Next week is going to be something different. The week after is going to be something different. Sonnet, Grok, Gemini, Perplexity. Everybody's got all these models and they're always leapfrogging each other. In this case, okay, if I'm a marketer and I'm doing something very simple, this is good, right? I think the feedback to Agentic Studio was it was too complicated for marketers and too simple for developers. I found this too simple for my needs, but it's quite easy for content marketers. I know that this may change, and I think that this is going to go away for Microsoft Foundry AI, which is Microsoft's version of n8n. So again, all of this is changing so quickly that I'm sure that while a lot of my topic is relevant today, if somebody watched this video 6 months from now, they would say, this is so old, like nobody uses Opus 4.6 anymore. It's moving so fast. So just trying to keep up.
Okay, that's great. So I guess we are done with the questions and we are like over the time. So thanks, Steve, for the great session.